Hey everyone, I wanted to talk about my spiritual awakening a little bit more, specifically today, the symptoms. When I actually was going through the symptoms that I'll be explaining, I went to Google, I asked around, there was no clear answer to help me feel better, to help me understand what I was going through. I started to think I was getting sick or just unsure what was going on. And so the first symptom I recall that I could pinpoint was actually having really hot hands. It wasn't like, burning as if it was like a hot burning pot of water, but it was hot. And I was aware of it right away because typically my hands and feet are very cold. Um, it doesn't matter what I do, whether I exercise or anything. There's something about my blood circulation where my hands and feet are just always cold. So when my hands became really hot, I knew right away that something was wrong, and it wasn't past like my wrist, for example. It was very clearly just like my hands, more so specifically my palms, where the heat was coming from. And soon after, I started to experience like heart palpitations, where I would just be sitting, not doing any physical activity, like watching a Netflix show or something, and my heart would just begin to like feel as if it was beating outside of my chest. And I could not figure out how to even explain what I was feeling on the internet because it wasn't coming along with, out of breath or anything else. It was just like randomly my heart would beat really fast, like boom, 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 and slow down. And then I would go about my day and it would happen again. So it kind of felt, irregular. And there was no triggers or anything that I could figure out why this was happening. Soon after this, I actually began having an experience where I was sitting watching TV shows. This was around the pandemic, so there wasn't much to do, and Netflix was like skyrocketing in their, company mission to take over the world, right? And there was a lot of Korean drama shows. I was all over it, and I remember just sitting there watching a show, and my neck would just like bend backwards and my head would just fall like that. So I'm like normal sitting, it would fall. And I would bring it back up and it would fall. And I kid you not, I was scared. I live alone. So I was like, what is going on with these hot hands, with these random heart things? Which both of those things I thought maybe I'm getting sick or something is going wrong. But when this neck thing started happening and I was sitting straight, constantly correcting my posture to prevent it from happening, I just knew this was not an illness, like a physical illness. I was like, there is something spiritual happening. Um, like I was scared, but I wasn't too freaked out in the sense of like in our Hmong culture, we don't have a religion, but we have like shamanic practices and we speak of spirituality, commonly. So I instantly just knew that, oh, there's something messing with me. There's something going on. Um, Soon after all of that, I was like, okay, I need to monitor myself. Something is going on. I need to figure it out. And again, I went to Google and I tried to find answers and I was asking people I knew and other shamans. And it was like, oh, you need to, do these more like ritual, readings and um, practices to find the answer. But there was something within me that felt like, okay, if I do that, I don't know if that's going to give me the answer, if that makes sense. So we have something called like oning. And when I thought of that, I'm like, I don't know if I need that. Like, that's the feeling I got, like my gut reaction. And I, at the time, thought I was like resisting it because I don't dislike the shamanic practices. I feel like I understand it enough. I mean, we grew up with it. But it was like, why did I immediately not want to do that? Right. And there's a whole story with my family and what we believe and what we follow, which kind of led me to think maybe I'm resisting it because of that too. But at the same time, I'm like, something's going on and I'm freaking out, but I didn't want to do that, right? Like that wasn't my, oh my gosh, I'm panicking. Let's go. I need to find out. So that also stood out to me in this overall experience, that even though I had fear, that didn't feel like the solution. But I did, you know, ask one of my shaman friends at the time to take a look, and they did like a cleansing, and it helped like relieve the overall feelings that were more so like anxious, and the physical like weight lifted. But yeah, it still didn't give me answers. And she did not say that you're going through an awakening and this is why. Like, I had no clue what was going on. She just thought, like, okay, you needed to be cleansed, and that was it. And so I was left with still, right? Like, even though the symptoms kind of felt relieved and gone, and my neck wasn't bending backwards anymore, I became curious, like, what is going on with me? I'm always curious. I'm a curious person. I like to find answers, but in general, I'm like, this is my physical body, and I've never experienced this in like my at the think I think at the time I was 27 or 28 in my like years of living. And so I began to observe myself even further, where I sat and paid attention to like what I was thinking when these things happened, right? So I would work backwards. If my hands suddenly got hot, I would think, well, what was I just thinking, or what just happened? And so an example of when that would happen was one time I was around someone, and my hands got warm, and I had this thought that came that was like, I need to help them. I had no clue. There's no details with that. And so as I observed these physical things that led me to observe my mental thoughts, it became tied together that I felt like I was connecting to something. And over time, I realized that something is a someone, and that someone was me. Whether it was and is my higher self, or who I really am, within my soul, or whether it's my guides, angels, I don't know. And at this point in my journey, I don't care, because I'm now so confident in my intuition, in um, myself, in my gifts. And it took a long time to get here, that I trust in my ability to navigate these thoughts, to choose when to follow them. And I remember, and I know always, that I'm in control. I don't let these thoughts control me. So all that to say, when my palms were getting warm around this individual, we're very close. So I told this person what was happening, and we ended up doing like a healing, which is great. But I don't always follow it. For example, if I feel that around certain people and I'm not in a setting, or I'm not close enough to them, or they're not aware of my gifts, or maybe if they're a stranger, I don't need to say or tell them anything. I just let it be and I move on. And I hope you know that whatever your gifts are, whatever you're experiencing, you can choose who you want to share with. You don't have to explain any of this to anyone. I was so afraid and so alone in my journey that I began seeking answers everywhere. And I actually got myself like mentally overwhelmed and confused. And that's okay. Like, it's a part of the journey, right? To seek answers, to feel lost, and to at the end come inward. Like, that was part of my experience, but I experienced it, and I am hoping to guide you so you don't go through the same thing, right? That if you experience any of these, observe yourself is the first step. If you need to jot it down so you don't forget. Share this if you want to with anybody that you trust, that you can confide in, that you know they won't judge you. I was so afraid of what was happening to me that I told all my close friends and um, my very close family members. And there's nothing wrong with that. But soon after, because this is all a journey, right? And things change. Soon after that, I started to feel like I needed to update them, or like I just had this anxiety that would kind of come up because now they're part of my journey because I opened that door to them. And as I experience things and I change things and I relabel things, right? Because when we don't know what we're going through, we want to understand it. So it's easy to find a word and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. And hey, this is what I'm going through. But these labels were shifting as I was shifting through my experience and I was growing and becoming more aware, and my vocabulary of all of these spiritual experiences was expanding. Words that I wasn't aware of, and experiences that others were sharing that I learned from my research and going online and old books. Because none of this is new, right? Like, we are not the first ones to go through this. I realized that if I shared that word, for example, and I try to explain what I'm going through now versus what I shared in the beginning when I was like, hey, something's happening to me, no one would understand it. Like, no one around me would understand it because they were not on the same journey as I was. And I slowly, I would say, like, retreated and went back to just going through this by myself and learning that, and they're going to love you either way. It's fine. And my friends and family still love me. It's just my journey was, I was so fearful that I went and I asked for help and I was confiding in everyone. And then I realized, hey, this is my journey. I don't need to keep them updated. I don't need to answer all the questions. And they're asking questions because they care. But it became a lot because when you don't know what you're going through and you feel like you have to answer other people's questions, and it's overwhelming, right? So I hope that when you're going through your experience, you take the time to go through it by yourself first, because this is your journey. Okay. When I went through all these physical experiences and began to experience more of the mental parts and grouped it all together and gained my confidence and really understood what I was on, which again was a spiritual awakening journey, I shifted so much in how I viewed the world, how I interacted with the world, and what I wanted for my future. That may happen to you as well. It's like nothing makes sense. You begin to question everything you've been told. You begin to question everyone and everything around you, not in a negative light, but you're just questioning things, right? Like, why am I here with these specific people? Whether it's your family, your friends, your job, your neighborhood. Why are you here with these people? Like, who are they to you? And how do you guys serve each other? Like, what's the purpose of all this, right? Why did you have all of the relationships you had? Did you learn lessons? Did you cause pain? Did they cause you pain? And why? Like, what came out of everything that happened to you? And I shared this in my previous video about things not happening to you, it's happening for you. And that's all of these thoughts helped me arrive to the everything that's happening for me. Everything happened for me so that I can become who I am today, so that I am as strong as I am today, so that I know who I am today. I am able to remember specific, words from people I've had conversations with that guided me in a way, right? Where maybe I was going through something and they said the right words and it really stuck to me, right? Have you had those experiences? So all of that internal reflection of my life experiences, the people, the places, the things, all of that that I've gone through up until I was 30 like hit me. And yeah, it was a long time of just sitting, looking inward. You may feel like you're overthinking, but really you are at a point where you are so awakened and aware that you are reflecting at a level that you've never reflected before, right?